All right, man, welcome back to the Dude's Guide to Manhood Roundtable. We're here in session 2 to look at what it means to be a coachable man. Got with us a couple men from staff, Philip Lindsay, our intern of student ministries this past summer, and our director of adult ministries, Douglas Humphrey. Thanks for coming, guys.
Thank you.
Really excited that you're here. Okay, so let's just start off with an icebreaker here. Who was an influential coach in your life? What do you think?
Influential coach.
Yeah.
I guess I'll go first because I'm a little further away than you are. But I would say for me, Mr. Legs.
Yeah.
Mr. Legs worked for Ford Motor Company, and he came into our middle school every day, well, about 3 times a week, and he would just love on us and inspire us. The biggest thing I remember about Mr. Legs is that he saw more in me than I cared to see in myself. So he was the man who said, Douglas, I see you doing these things versus doing those things. Let me help you get to that place. But I didn't appreciate it, and I didn't want it at that time. But he was patient, and he kept at it, and here I am today.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mr. Legs.
Yeah. So he saw potential in you. Yeah. Taught you how to go after it, what steps you needed.
Yeah,
That's really
absolutely.
cool.
Yeah.
That's great. Philip, who you got?
Yeah, for me, best coach I've ever had, most influential coach. His name was Arturo Leon.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's from Cuba. He was my cross-country coach and lacrosse coach all the way through high school.
Okay.
So I had 4 years with him, 2 separate seasons.
Yeah.
Got to know him really well. The thing about him that was had so much influence on me was, one, every beginning of every season, he laid out expectations and he expected us to follow in them, and he was very clear in what he wanted us to do. And not only that, he didn't just throw it out here like, okay, this is what I want you to do, now figure out how to get there. He helped us and walked alongside of us to get us to that point. And yeah, he was very one-on-one personable. He would go to each player and point out, okay, this is what your purpose on this team is, this is what your role is, and I'm going to help you to do that. So not only was he just very clear cut, but he was also had an emotional connection with every player.
Right.
So
That's awesome. Okay, so just the idea of being a coachable man means that at some point you realize that you need coaching, that you need help. Okay, so I'm 30.
33.
33.
and I'm 20.
20. Okay. So all young, some younger, others. But okay, so how do we express this idea of being coachable? I mean, what are ways that you actively seek after being coached?
Okay. Well, I'll go first on this one, being the youngest.
Right. Yeah.
And needing the most coaching, probably.
Yeah,
I don't
let's
know,
say
dude.
that.
You should look at me.
Yeah, you should look at him.
But with that, I do think that it's a lifestyle that you have to adopt.
Yeah.
It is a mindset that every day you have to put yourself in the shoes of, okay, one, for me, I'm still young. I know there's so many things that I haven't even experienced or gotten to that I have no clue about. Raising a family, working a full-time job, stuff like that, where I have to humble myself. And it's not enough to just humble yourself and admit that. You have to seek somebody out.
That's good.
You have to go out with that humble mindset and seek men out that know more than you. And that's something that I've had to adopt in my own life, even just in the last year. I always had the mindset of, okay, I need to humble myself. I have so much room to grow, but I didn't go seek people out. I was like, I have so much to grow, so I'm going to try and figure it out on my own. And it wasn't until I sought older, wiser men out that I actually saw myself growing and being coached and going places.
That's good.
So it's a mindset.
You had to take that step to
Yes.
not just say, I need to be coached, but to find a coach.
Yeah, because sometimes you'll have a coach come and find you, like a man in your life, be like, okay, here, I'm going to take you under my wing. But more than likely, you got to go and seek somebody out.
That's good.
Yeah, that's good.
Douglas?
Yeah, I'm not trying to go spiritual or hyper-spiritual on this one, but whenever God has shown me who he wants me to be, what he wants me to do, what he wants me to accomplish, I've always just felt led to go and seek that person who's already doing it, who maybe a master, quote unquote, in that area, or a professional in that area, if you will. So a good example for me would be here at Harvest. I had before coming to Harvest, I thought I had been called into ministry, had that strong sense to go into full-time ministry.
Okay.
Then I didn't have a clue what that meant. And so one Sunday, Sheila and I ended up here at Harvest. And so between services, we saw Pastor Rob, and I said, "Hey, Pastor Rob, my name is Douglas Humphrey. Really quick, I'm a minister of the gospel. Don't know what that means. Can you help me?" And he looks at me like, "Let me get back to you," right?
Right.
And so I got a phone call from John Cochran the following week, and maybe also John Walters, and they have been instrumental in my life. But my point is that whenever I need to learn something that I don't know how to do, I've always sought out a man to help me out. I look for that guy who's a professional, a master in that area, whether it be business, whether it be ministry, whether it be being a parent, whatever it is.
That's good. Yeah, I've done the same thing along with my wife, Rebecca. When we had our first kid, Amelia, we were just like totally overwhelmed. We didn't know what was going on or what we should be doing. So we started seeking after the parents of families that we just really thought their kids were great and really loved their marriage. We wanted that kind of marriage. I wanted to be that kind of husband. Rebecca wanted to be that kind of wife. And so we even do this today. We got 4 kids, and guess what? It's still happening.
Right.
We take them out to dinner. We're just saying, okay, so how did you discipline your kids? How did you maintain this relationship between husband and wife so well? How do you make sure that each other are loved and cared for in this family unit? And we take it really practically. And yeah, one of the best advice that I got from one of those suppers was a dad looked at me and said, "I try to say yes to my kids as much as I can."
Yeah.
It's like, man, that just stayed
absolutely.
with me.
Yeah.
You know, the next day I said no to my kid 4 times in a row, and I'm like, I'm missing it. Yeah, so got to get that wisdom back in my life. Yeah, really good. Okay, so that's being coachable, but we saw in the life of Timothy that Paul calls him not just to be coached, but to coach others. And we say this in 2 questions that we're asking throughout our church right now. 1, are you being discipled? And 2, are you making disciples?
Absolutely.
That's our focus, right?
Yeah.
So tell me the shift from not just being coached, but being a coach, helping grow disciples. How has that played out in your life, even as young men?
Yeah, absolutely. I can't tell you there was like a definitive time or line drawn in the sand when I recognized this about myself, but there's always a natural shift that when I become comfortable with a certain piece of material or what I'm called to do or what I'm doing currently, I always want to impart that wisdom back to someone else. I always want to raise up the next generation. And so part of that shift in my mind, I guess, goes back to the Great Commission. You know, it says to teach all these new disciples the things you observed me doing. This is the words of Jesus Christ, right? And so I think that every man needs to make that decision in his life that when I gain enough knowledge, I'm comfortable with who I am in Jesus Christ, my next mission, my next job is to go and impart that wisdom into the next generation to make disciples. And the hope is being that those people you pour into, that one day they'll become the disciple makers themselves. You keep that whole system going over and over and over again.
Yeah, that's good.
And on my end, it's actually funny to think about it just in this moment that for me, being coachable versus coaching came at different times. It didn't go coachable, okay, now coach.
Got it.
It went 8th grade, felt called to ministry, felt God saying, "Philip, you're going to train up young people in my name." So I was like, okay, let's start doing this.
Yeah.
So I did. Freshman year of high school, I started leading a small group at my home church.
No way.
And in that aspect of pouring into younger people just a little bit that I've learned, only being 3 years older than them, was something that became, once again, a lifestyle. And then throughout that process is when I started to realize, okay, I can't pour into these men unless I'm being poured into. I'm going to pour myself fully out, and then what's left to pour out, and then they're left with nobody pouring into them.
It's a quick pour.
It is.
Yeah, what you had, yeah.
And also with what Douglas was saying, just that aspect of when you're being filled up by somebody, you can't do anything but let it come out. If you're taking what these men are pouring into you and you're taking it to heart, and it should excite you, it should just fill you up so much that it's overflowing and everything. You're having a normal conversation and you find yourself sharing something about what you just learned. And that's, like you said, it just naturally comes when you let yourself be filled up.
That's really good. That word overflow just sparks on my mind, like thinking about, take a cup, you put it under the faucet, 2 cups underneath that, 1 cup, turn on the faucet and it goes, and it's getting poured into, water's going towards the brim, and then it's the overflow principle, right? When that cup gets so full from that faucet, it just starts going over the top, and what happens? Water's going over the cups now. And that's how we want to make disciples. Not that at some point in our life we were a disciple, and then we stop being a disciple,
Nope.
Yeah.
and then we start making disciples. That's not right.
Mm-mm.
We're constantly being filled up and overflowing
Mm-hmm.
by being coached by other men, that we might be able to be used by God to coach others.
Yeah, I call it the middle principle. I think that every man should work to become the middle person. And what I mean by that is, so like using Paul as our model, right?
Yeah.
Who was pouring into Paul? You had Barnabas, right?
Yes,
And
sir.
who was Paul pouring into? We have Timothy.
Yeah.
So always try to be in that middle. So like I'm being poured into, and then from what's being poured into me, I'm pouring out into someone else. So I always teach guys and even women to some degree, always be that middle person.
I love that. The middleman.
Middleman. There you
There
go.
it is. All right, men. So there's your calling. Let's go into your table groups now and look at how the Lord would call you both to be a coachable man, and that he would use you to coach others in the gospel of Jesus Christ. Go into your tables now.